But let's continue our connectivity journey, ladies and gentlemen. At the start of the summer, our sister brand, Global Fleet, conducted for the very first time the Connected Vehicles Fleet Survey. More than 230 fleet decision makers, both customers and suppliers, responded to the survey. And this survey is indeed an excellent benchmark in terms of the opportunities and the obstacles to transform to a fully connected fleet. Today, we will discuss the key findings of that survey, and this afternoon, we will give you more insight into the expectations of the corporate buyers. But now, I welcome my colleague and dear friend Sven van Rossum. He is marketing manager and head of research, and he will now inform us about the way the suppliers look at connected fleets. Sven, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Thank you very much. Thank you for the nice introduction. Indeed, I'm just going to share my screen already.
That's perfect. And so, ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions regarding the presentation that Sven will share, then of course you can submit your questions via the chat.
Great. All right. Thank you very much, Stephen. Indeed, as Stephen mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, we've conducted a survey starting in the middle of June until approximately the middle of July within our global fleet community, a survey around connectivity and telematics, just to get a little bit of a grip on what these new technologies and these innovations are doing within our community. And we can say it was quite a success. We had more than 230 representatives of the global fleet community that participated in the survey, of which a little bit above 60% were representatives of the fleet supply chain, and a little bit above 30% actual fleet owners, corporate fleet owners who participated. They were based in 18 different countries around the globe, and they've participated in a relatively short survey of around 7 minutes. Before we start, I just wanted to say that this survey is also available in the Global Fleet Knowledge Center, so you can download the full results of the survey at the Knowledge Center on globalfleet.com. And then now I think we can start by giving you a little bit of a preview, at least, what the supply chain indeed has answered when it comes to connectivity and telematics in our industry. As Stephen mentioned in the afternoon, in one of the breakout sessions, I will also highlight the responses of the fleet owners. But right now, we're really going to focus on, okay, what's the view from the supply chain? The first question we asked was a very simple one, but also a very important one, obviously. Just to give you insight, when we're talking about the supply chain that have participated in the survey, the majority of respondents, suppliers, were either lease co-responsible, so people working for leasing companies or rental companies, but also car manufacturers have participated, and also obviously telematics suppliers. What's interesting to see is that 90% of them say that it's either important or even a priority for their company to invest and to further develop fleet connectivity. If we compare that, for example, and I'll already give you a little bit of a preview, if we compare that with what the customers are saying, that's pretty much in line, but it's still a little bit lower. So the customers are saying 72% of them are saying that fleet connectivity is important or priority. So that's just to give a little bit of an insight that fleet connectivity is indeed already there today, and it is going to increase in importance in the future. If you look at the second slide, it's a question that we've asked them, is if you are already using connectivity or telematics solutions, who is effectively providing them? So again, looking at the answers from the supply chain being representatives of leasing companies, rental companies, which was the majority, we see that almost 1 in 4 have said that we have developed our own solution. So really developing a full-blown connectivity/telematics solution that they are using for their fleets towards their customers. Another 30% are saying that we are using a third party. So let's say a real telematics specialist or connectivity specialist they're utilizing to provide answers for their customers. Interesting there is also that 11% of them are saying that they are open to switch to another potential provider. All right. Then we go to the next slide. If we ask the suppliers, the top 3 countries where you currently, so today, 2021, sorry, today, which are the countries that have the biggest share of connected vehicles today already? Unsurprisingly, perhaps, the US came out on top. I think reflecting on that, and we'll see that later as well, I think it makes perfect sense because also in the US, let's say the privacy laws from that perspective are a little bit less, or the work council laws are a little bit less than what we see with fleets in Europe. Also, let's not forget that in the US, fleets are more from a usage point of view, so they are more function fleets than, let's say, fleets for employees that are working at the head office. If we look at the UK, also there, I think it's not really a surprise because the focus on safety and health in the UK is a little bit higher than what we see in the rest of mainland Europe. So that is coming up strong as well. And then looking at Brazil, I think also there, not the biggest surprise, specifically from, let's say, a theft, safety, fraud perspective, that makes perfect sense.
So Sven, I think indeed that it's interesting that United States is of course a top spot because they are used to drive bigger vehicles, trucks, pickups, etc. And as you mentioned, they don't have really that principle of the benefit car vehicle that many countries in Europe have. Now in the UK, they also have benefit vehicles, but you are saying that there is really a focus since years on the safety element, and that safety element is often combined with new technology like telematics and connectivity. Is that correct?
Indeed. In the UK, if we look at the UK, the legislation obviously is very much focused on health and safety for corporate employees. There is even a bill that has passed many years before, actually, that I think it's called the Corporate Manslaughter Act, if I'm not mistaken, which is a very drastic name. But it actually encourages or even obliges corporations to do everything possible to make sure that their employees are safe. So that means also from a mobility point of view.
Mm-hmm. And what is also nice is to see that the result here, it's really a global result. So on the third place, we have a country in Latin America where we hear indeed that it can be useful to deploy connected technology, not only for driver behavior, for example, but also for safety reasons, to detect fuel fraud, theft of the vehicle, etc.
Correct, 100%. I think that is one of the key aspects that is still dominant in let's say Latin America is if we compare that to Europe, there are still a higher penetration of fraud cases of theft. Exactly. So that probably explains a little bit why telematics is already so much implemented in those countries. Because you can also see on the right hand side that Mexico also came up quite high on the list. I think they had approximately 7% of connected vehicles already.
Okay.
All right. Then we go to the next slide, which I think is an interesting one. And also here we see a slight difference in comparison to, let's say, the customer point of view. So if we ask the fleet suppliers, okay, what are your expectations when it comes to connected vehicles by, let's say, 2025? And they've indicated that 56% of fleets will have, at least a certain penetration of connectivity in their fleets. Even further, 40% of those respondents also said that the penetration of connectivity will even be higher than 70%. So they really expect that shift that is already happening today, continue and even grow for the future. From a customer point of view, just to give you an idea, and again, I'll get into that this afternoon, but they indicated 48%. So that's a little bit lower than what the supplier's point of view was.
Mm-hmm. So it's around 1 on 2 vehicles that will be connected.
More from a fleet perspective. So it's 1 in 2 fleets that will have connectivity solutions implemented. Okay.
Okay.
Then we get to the next slide. asking the suppliers, okay, what are the biggest motivators of your customers to equip their fleet with these kind of solutions? From a fleet supply chain point of view, reduction of fleet costs is absolute highest on the agenda to implement connectivity solutions. I think to improve operational efficiency coming out second, obviously also leans a little bit towards that, making sure that everything is more efficient, making sure that everything is set to actually reduce costs for managing your fleet going further. What we do see, which was a big difference in comparison to the customer point of view, is the reduction of environmental impact. Here we have 22% of the fleet suppliers saying that this is probably a motivator for corporate fleets, while asking the corporate fleets themselves, it was more up to 40%. So I think there the view from a corporate fleet is probably more looking at electrification and things like that, is where telematics or connectivity can also play its role and can help in further electrifying, for example, their fleet.
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting already that there seems to be somehow also a mismatch when it comes to what the suppliers think as motivators for their customers and what the customers, we will discover that this afternoon, think themselves about being the motivators for connected technology.
Correct. I think in bigger lines, at least, they're probably on the same route. And so mm-hmm. I think the ultimate goals are all pretty much the same regarded to from a customer and a supplier perspective. But what we see is that probably from a fleet supply perspective, the way that they need to approach their customers in saying, okay, well, these are the benefits of connectivity is actually a little bit different than what customers are actually thinking why they might need connectivity solutions. But we'll get into that in a couple of slides later as well.
Okay.
We get to the next one. This is definitely also one. The biggest concerns customers face with implementing connectivity solutions in their fleet. And here, this is definitely one that stands out. So the suppliers again say that customers are a little bit afraid of the costs that are associated with implementing such solutions. While actually, if we look at that from a customer perspective, it is lower. For them, the data privacy and the work council resistance came out on 1 and 2. So there you see a clear difference. So from a customer perspective, I think they all comprehend and they would like to implement those connectivity solutions, but they are looking at a lot of constraints or a lot of pressure internally within their organizations to make sure that it's all aligned with data privacy rules and to make sure that the work councils are okay with it. While from a supplier perspective, they think, okay, well, the reason why there might be a hiccup or it might go slower with some customers is primarily associated with costs. So I think that's a very interesting one, and that is something to take into account. Others, obviously, is the lack of available offering in the market, or at least the knowledge of the available offering in the market. It comes out at 16%. And of course, also uncertainty about potential benefits. I think it's still unclear for, well, at least supply chain things, it's still unclear for some of the customers, okay, what are the effective benefits of using telematics that go beyond, let's say, track and trace?
So this probably does not mean that fleet customers are not concerned about the cost of telematics, but we could say that it's probably a good advice to the suppliers to support their customers in terms of how to overcome data privacy challenges and how to sell telematics with possible barriers around data privacy internally.
Well, we can even go a step further, Stephen. One of the questions we asked the customer profiles, so the corporate fleets effectively was, okay, are you willing to pay a little bit more to get the data to ensure safety, to make sure that, well, you can track and trace your cars, et cetera, et cetera. And most of them, the majority have said, indeed, we have no problem in paying a little bit more, or it needs to be cost neutral. And only a limited amount of corporate fleets have indicated, no, it really needs to be immediately beneficial from the start. So I think most corporate fleets understand that when implementing connectivity solutions, there is a long-term benefit on it. And that is something that I think the fleet supply chain sometimes still underestimate, and that they're heavily focused on that first cost, and that comes with implementing these devices, and not necessarily always looking at the longer-term benefits.
Okay, and we can also ask the fleet suppliers that are partnering in this event this afternoon when they do their presentations and when there is time for Q&A together with them, of course.
Correct. Then we get to the next slide, and I think this is also a little bit crucial when talking about connectivity. I think if we're talking about mobility solutions, tech plays a huge role in this. I heard Veolia also saying in its presentation that they are looking at the total cost of mobility, or at least that's the road that they want to go ahead in the future. Well, in order to do that, I think connectivity solutions are play a huge role. And you see that also here, that almost 70% are saying that we would like to offer mobility solutions to our fleet. It's very important, and you'll see in the next slide also there that connectivity plays a role. Okay. If we look at, just going a little bit more in detail, if we look at alternative mobility solutions that are already being offered to the customers of fleet suppliers, we see that car sharing, for example, comes up with almost 90% in the next 5 years. So they're offering already 35% of the suppliers are offering a car sharing solution today. And the ones that are not, more than 50% are saying they will do that in the next years. So we see that car sharing is one of those solutions, again, where technology can play a huge part as well, that will come up. Other mobility solutions like the mobility budget, like public transport, coming from, let's say, the fleet and mobility supply chain itself, also, again, will only increase in the future. So that offering will increase in the future for corporate fleets. And again, their technology and connectivity solutions are absolutely important. Of course, talking about e-mobility and electric vehicles, we see already today that the majority is offering solutions for that, so are offering effectively electric cars to their customers. But we see also that the ones that have not done that yet will do so in the coming years. So we can expect by 2024 to have 100% of all the suppliers offering solutions for electric vehicles.
Yes. Already with the technology of, for example, a keyless entry to the mobility solution, you probably need connected technology. So I think there is no way back that the suppliers that want to offer mobility solutions today or tomorrow, that they also need to invest in connectivity and telematics.
Indeed, I think if we're talking about a real total cost of mobility, if that is where the future is headed for corporate fleets, you need the technology to support that. We've seen in the past that early adopters that were looking towards really providing a mobility offering to their employees, that there was a lot of constraints, let's say, because of the manual labor that comes with it. Imagine getting invoices from the public transport, getting invoices from your car share provider, and from your leasing company, and from your rental company. This needs to be managed, and it needs to go further than purely invoicing. It also needs to go, okay, how many miles driven, etc. So their connectivity can play a huge role. Okay. Then we asked the supply chain, okay, what benefits would you expect to be able to offer your customers with a connected fleet? So this is an important one, because coming back to a couple of slides earlier where we said, okay, that the view might be a little bit different from a supply chain towards the corporate fleets effectively. Here, this is an important one because this is ultimately probably how the supply chain is selling those connectivity solutions to them. Important there is that the reduction in cost of maintenance comes out on top with 81%. But other things, and let's say the more soft side with regards to advice towards customers and drivers, also is pretty high on the agenda. What I think is important for corporate fleets is that can be quantified at a certain level. If we're saying, okay, with telematics or with connectivity solutions, you can manage your drivers better, make sure that their behavior is better, that they don't put the pedal to the metal too much and things like that. I think it's important that we can quantify that towards that community. Okay, if we implement a connectivity solution, then this is the result that you can get out of that. Other things are a reduction in cost of insurance is also something that they expect to be able to deliver. And here also additional services to support EV implementation. I think this needs to come out a little bit further as well. Again, looking at charging points, looking at those kind of things, I think that is something that connectivity can truly help corporate fleets as well. All right. Then we get to the final slide that we wanted to share with you in this morning's session. And that's obviously related to the pandemic. We've asked both suppliers and customers, how has let's say, the pandemic put an effect on your connectivity strategy? And 30% of the suppliers have said, well, actually, because of the pandemic, we see that data and the management of those fleets is even more crucial. Just to give you an example, throughout the pandemic, when everybody was working from home, obviously there was a lot less miles driven. So I think it's crucial there that a fleet manager, whether it's on a local, regional, or global level, can effectively see, okay, what impact does this now have on my contracts? Do I need to start negotiating with my leasing company, etc.? So also there, the supply chain understands that and has said that connectivity solutions or our connectivity offering, we're going to increase, we're going to step up our game, and we're going to speed that up over the year, the next years. Another 30% has said exactly the same. So that's also interesting, is that the same part of suppliers have done exactly the difference. So we'll see in the future, effectively, who will be the winner here, the one who has slowed down on connectivity or the ones who have sped up. Okay, and I think that is it for now.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if any questions have come in from the audience, but I would be more than happy to answer those.
No, not yet. So if you have a question for Sven, then please submit it via the chat function. Sven, based on what you presented, do you feel that the fleet suppliers are doing enough when it comes to telematics, and they have a good understanding about what they need to do for the customer?
I think looking at the results of the survey, and this is not the only survey that we've done, obviously, around the topic. We've done many over the past couple of years. And looking at those results, what is clear for me is that it needs to be easy for a corporate fleet customer. I think most of the corporate fleets that we have within our community understand the benefits or the potential benefits of having connectivity in their fleets. They fully understand what the value could be going further. I think today there's still too much of a hassle to get everything in one contract, so to speak. So I think there the supply chain can definitely play its role. And I think we can continue actually to work and make that easier, or let's make it more swallowable for corporate fleets to implement those solutions.
Okay, and can we expect some very interesting and perhaps surprising results from the other side this afternoon?
No, well, there are some surprises, obviously, but I think indeed the most important one is the difference in view. So a customer again that has participated in the survey, the average customer there is really conscious of everything that's happening in the fleet and mobility market, and is conscious of the benefits that this might bring. I think for me it's crucial, and that's why I would encourage all suppliers here in the audience to participate in the session, is that they get a full understanding of what customers are saying and what customers would like to hear from the suppliers. So again, here the cost perspective is one clear point of view, and that the suppliers really estimate that corporate fleets are really only focused on cost, or in the first instance. Well, actually, if you ask those corporate fleets, they look more also on the soft sides and the long-term benefits of those solutions.
Okay. Well, let's discover what the corporate fleet customers think about connected fleets and telematics this afternoon at 2:30 p.m. Sven, thank you very much, and we will hear from you later. Thank you for the insights.
Super.